Lieutenant General Raj Shukla, thank you so much for joining us on WION World is One. Of course, we know Operation Sindoor was launched at 11:44 a.m. on Wednesday morning. You know all that's transpired so far. We did see that Pakistan in the days leading up to this did have the opportunity to perhaps, at the very least, condemn the terror attack in Pahalgam. The response, we've seen what it was, how it played out. How do you assess what's happened so far and, of course, Pakistan's response to it, Pakistani forces targeting civilians in Jammu and Kashmir? What's your take on this, sir?
As far as, I've been following events, my understanding is something like this. If you keep the claims of losses apart, because that doesn't seem to have, been independently confirmed so far, in terms of the unfolding of calibrated military kinetics, I think we've seen some brilliant alchemy of India's power and purpose. Look at our statecraft, the politico-military orchestration, ambiguity and deception. Yesterday, when we said that the drills will be carried out from today, it seemed to suggest that the strikes were some distance off, we'll prepare and then we'll strike. And then just past midnight, you have these strikes going in. In the codenaming of the Operation Sindoor, there is deep symbolism that we will avenge the grief of our brides. We will avenge the savagery of 22nd April. There is direct signaling to Asim Munir, his dog whistling of 16th April. But what is most remarkable is the precise military execution. Right. Look at the target array. We have broadened the swath. While confining it to the terror ecosystem, we have broadened it from Muzaffarabad, Kotli, Gulpur, Bhimber, Sialkot, Muridke, all the way down to Bahawalpur. And we have targeted the headquarters of LET, JEM. Some reports say that the terror leadership has been struck. That would be a first in terms of targeted assassinations. Some reports suggest that these were UAV-led, which means it is, a coming together of manned and unmanned systems. So in all, I think, kudos to the Air Force. We seem to have done very well. Look at the sheer gaps, the vulnerabilities in Pakistan's air defense. They haven't been able to protect anything. Their HQ-9s haven't seemed to be, they seem not to have functioned too well. Pakistan's air defense seems to have been caught napping. So in military terms, I think so far it seems to be 10 on 10. You also see statesmanship. In the statement that has come out, we have said, listen, we have hit you. We have not hit your military targets. So escalatory dominance is with us. If you wish to escalate, we suggest you don't. But if you wish to escalate, we are lying in wait. Overall terms, I think if you see the activities of the last 2 weeks, diplomacy, the information narrative, and now the military execution, you see the coming of age of Indian statecraft. So that is how I look at it.
Right. And also, Lieutenant General, I would like to also ask your opinion on now we're looking at what happens next. So what would your opinion be of how will this all play out?
So see, in all military stuff, what you can do is that the chosen option, you maximize it for lethality and de-risk it as much as possible. So that is what we have done. So there are risks involved now, and the risks are of a retaliatory strike by Pakistan. The dilemma before Pakistan is what targets does it choose? Last time, in swift retort, that is post-Balakot, they dropped some of their weaponry close to Indian military headquarters. If they target military headquarters, their military assets will be equally vulnerable. And if they have suffered so much embarrassment in terms of their terror ecosystem, given the sheer gaps in the air defense, it appears to me that the military installations are equally vulnerable. So escalatory dominance is with us. I mean, we are saying don't escalate, but if you wish to, we will we are willing to take it up a couple of notches up the escalatory ladder. So I think this is a moment for Pakistan to see reason, swallow its pride, and do nothing.
Absolutely, Lieutenant General. In fact, I was just going to come to that as well. And we've been discussing this on WION as well, whether or not Pakistan can really afford a war. As you mentioned, what happened in the wee hours of this morning, it has very much exposed the vulnerabilities in Pakistan's air defense. Now, if we were to talk about a full-scale confrontation, it has already exposed its fragile systems and perhaps would be a suicidal mission at this point. We also know that Pakistan conducted the two Fatah missile tests that were part of the exercises there. And would you say that all of this is just in a bid to project resolve and posturing, and when it comes to actually a full-scale confrontation, the question still remains whether or not Pakistan is equipped or can afford this fight?
You see, I think this is, a 1971 moment. In 1971, after the creation of Bangladesh, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi said that we have buried the two-nation theory in the Bay of Bengal. This time, if Pakistan chooses to respond, we will bury the two-nation theory in the Arabian Sea. And I'll tell you why. Just look at the comparisons. I think this is after a long time, India has punched to its strategic weight. Right from Parliament attack to Kaluchak and Nagrota and all that stuff, we never responded. Or if we responded, it was, isolated messaging in limited domains. So Pakistan never got to see the whole fire and fury, the breadth and depth of the Indian strategic military system. And here it is before you. I mean, look at the economic and the military balance. We are 4 trillion, they are what, 0.38 trillion. Their foreign exchange reserves are $6 billion, ours is $680 billion. So it is time for the Pakistani politico-strategic military establishment to see sense. They are simply no match for us. And what is really important is that, that under this nuclear cover, which is actually a schoolboy bluff, they were on this terror rampage. And no strategic rationale tells you that you can use nuclear weapons to go on these strategic rampage. Right. So this is all a product of a limited, segment of Pakistan's strategic military establishment, which is strategically obtuse, high on low cunning, but low on strategic wisdom. And what we have done is to expose all these fragilities in their system. And I think the final message is this to the Pakistani nation, that listen, terror has to be banished from the thought of your strategic system. Terror cannot be a tool of statecraft.
Right, and I just want to pick up on what my colleague Him just asked about this, what happens next and if Pakistan can afford to. It's probably too early to actually talk about that, but let's also talk about the diplomacy that takes place. During when the attack took place, we had Russia who was saying that it's going to support India, whereas we also saw Chinese officials meet with Pakistani officials in Pakistan. It's too early to say that it's going to expand, but again, maybe the same thing again. Can Pakistan actually afford it, and how does this actually play out globally?
My reading of the diplomatic space tells me this. I've gone through these statements very carefully of President Trump, Defense Secretary Hegseth, Vance, even the State Department. Broadly, they seem to suggest, or they said very explicitly, that in India's fight against terror, they are with us. They said it. So I think the American nudge and wink is already with us. President Putin's conversation with Prime Minister Modi seemed to be very supportive and fruitful. The Israelis are with us. But listen, we know that in military terms, we have to act autonomously. We have done that. And given the success of what we've done, much of the world will roll over to our side because there is general global disgust with terror. The point is terror. It is not about an Indo-Pak escalation. It is of using terror as a tool of statecraft. And all the years of restraint that we have shown also, is in our favor because we are operating from a moral high. So it is that rare moment in our statecraft where everything seems to be coming together. And the message is this, that if you challenge Indian power and purpose, you will bear its wrath and its fury.
Absolutely, Lieutenant General. Of course, as you mentioned earlier as well, the escalatory dominance right now lies with India. This is not an isolated messaging incident at all. There's a certain finality to it as well. And we've been seeing that Pakistan ministers, ambassadors, several of them, they've been raising the nuke threats as well. So, of course, it's perhaps okay to say right now that the bluff has been called.
Schoolboy bluff. See, those who understand the nuclear paradigm, what is the nuclear paradigm? That you will use nuclear weapons when your existence is threatened.
Right.
Your large cities are... India is also, we are a nuclear weapons power. We are a triad, a nuclear triad. We never use this. We have had so many confrontations with China. We have never spoken nuclear. So these are low, silly minds who are talking of this nuclear stuff. As I said, it's a schoolboy bluff. And there we are showing it. And the point was this, I keep saying this, terror as a tool of statecraft under the nuclear umbrella is regression of the worst kind. But the larger point, and if I may end with this, is this, that, the international community has to persuade the Pakistan military to submit to civilian control. That's a fundamental principle of democracies and the international system. If that is done, these rogue elements, when they are under political control, you will not see terror being unleashed. So that is the larger purpose, and I hope this military strike, puts some sense into the wiser segments of Pakistani society.
Absolutely, and it's very rightly, as you said, and the targets that we saw in the 9 terror sites, we saw that India did attack. They were all home to terror camps. We've seen all of that response coming in for Pakistan. Now, they immediately started with the violation of ceasefire and LOC, where 3 innocent lives were taken. So what are we looking at is actually a small kind of action from Pakistan, but India has been ready for it. So if it does escalate, how do we see it going forward? How do we see it? How do you look at it?
We are prepared. Look at our options. We have got options across domains: land, air, sea, space, EW, cyber. What you've seen so far is only 10%. Look at our instruments. We have 2 aircraft carriers. He has none. Nuclear-powered submarines. We have a nuclear triad. On the land, we have pivot cores, which have considerable offensive potential. We have strike cores, which have even greater offensive potential. Rafales 4.5 with the Astra. We have a superior set of weapons. So Pakistan simply has to see sense. It makes no sense for Pakistan to escalate. But should they choose to, as I said, we have escalatory dominance, and we have many flanks to choose from. In fact, the flank of decision may not have been used as yet. So we have multiple options along the escalatory ladder, domains to choose from. The net military advantage is grossly in our favor.
Right, sir, absolutely. And you said that Pakistan should just see sense. Now, if past precedence is anything to go by, that may not happen. Or do you see that happening this time because there's perhaps a certain finality to the message that India has sent them? Also, I want to understand, if there isn't an escalation, if we were to entertain that scenario as well, we know India is fully prepared for an escalation. If there wasn't an escalation, do you think there could be a diplomatic solution to this?
I would welcome it. If the diplomatic community intervenes and prevents escalation, who would be against it? And look, did Pakistan leave us with any option? The sheer barbarism and savagery of 22nd April, communal terror, religious targeting, honeymoons being turned into funerals, fathers being shot in cold blood in front of their children. It was a challenge to Bharat, its Bharatiyata, our secular fabric, the facade and substance of our power. It would have been irresponsible not to act. So we were left with no option. So we have responded to that heinous act. And now, if the diplomatic community were to intervene and persuade Pakistan to see reason, I would welcome it wholeheartedly.
Absolutely, and as we also were talking about how both the nations, they're nuclear armed, and we have seen a lot of Pakistani officials, ambassador talk about a nuclear attack and everything. Do you think the bluff has been called out?
I am of the firm view that this nuclear stuff is a bogey. It's schoolboy bluff. There is enough space for India. And see, here is where generalship and operational art comes in. You so orchestrate and apply your forces that you punish the adversary while keeping it below the threshold, below the nuclear threshold. There are red lines in the nuclear paradigm, but we know what the red lines are. And it is not for Pakistan to brandish their red lines. That they will do a terror attack, and if we choose to respond, they'll go, screaming nuclear all over the world. That kind of, that schoolboy bluff will not work.
Right, absolutely, Lieutenant General. Also, of course, we saw yesterday that rating agency Moody's made it clear that rising tensions hurt Pakistan far more than it hurts India. India is well cushioned to perhaps absorb the shock of such incidents. India's robust $3.7 trillion economy, it can absorb the impact of a conflict. Pakistan, on the other hand, it is in a precarious situation, and that's to put it nicely. It's already on an IMF lifeline support as well. Skyrocketing inflation, that's something it's dealing with. We already saw how much putting the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance hurt Pakistan. This was even before military action came. That being said, we were talking about the diplomatic solution to this. What will it take for Pakistan to finally realize where it's at, perhaps weigh its pros and cons, and then come to the negotiations table? Because we saw that it was unwilling to do so in the days leading up to it.
So these images on your screen, if Asim Munir is watching them, they should be reason enough for him to see reason. And, somebody was telling me that economy is less than the Bombay Stock Exchange. They really should see reason. They have got away with all the bravado of all these years because the Indian state, for some reason, showed extraordinary restraint. I recall in Parakram, years back when I was a colonel, we had mobilized, and on full mobilization, they struck the Kaluchak military station where they killed women and children, and we still didn't respond. So actually, in the Pakistan strategic system, this view took birth that India is a soft state. We are now showing them that we are no longer soft. We are a purposeful state. We can be hard when we wish to, and the losses will only be yours. So from every angle, from every facet of statecraft, it makes no sense for Pakistan to escalate it further. They simply don't match its size, it's the depth of its economy, technological ascendancy, military prowess, and aggregated or comprehensive national power. They simply are no match. It is a pity that it should have taken a military strike of the kind that occurred early this morning for them to see reason.
All right. Well, Lieutenant General Raj Shukla, thank you so much for joining us this morning with your insights and your perspective on this on WION World is One. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Great pleasure. Thank you.